Hi, David. Governor Paterson is one of the most incredible people I've run across, and we have the good fortune to be spending 10 minutes with him right now and talking about his book and really about him. This is New Democratic Dimensions, an organization of independent thinking Democrats, large and small d, dedicated to strengthening America through promoting public awareness, encouraging participation in the electoral and governmental process, and striving for the betterment of democracy. And we're so fortunate that Governor Paterson is a member of our board. And right off the bat, I want to thank Oscar Torres, who is making this all possible by producing it. Let's wave to Oscar. Thanks, Oscar. So Governor, good morning.
Good morning.
So I know you a long time, and it's funny as I'm looking at you, I think of your induction ceremony when you became governor, and it was at a church, if I recall correctly.
When I became governor?
What's that?
When I became governor?
Yeah, when you became, well, actually, it was when you became lieutenant governor.
Right, it was at Riverside Church.
Yeah, and it was the biggest crowd I've ever seen in my life. It was a who's who of Harlem and beyond, and you were royalty in that crowd, and your father was there, and everybody. What was that like for you? It had to be unbelievable, the feeling.
Well, when I became the minority leader of the Senate, which made me the first non-white person to be a minority leader, and no women had ever been that as well, we had a similar crowd. So I had seen that kind of turnout before. But when I was sworn in as lieutenant governor, there was really, lieutenant governors are rarely sworn in. But Governor Spitzer suggested to me it would really be good for the whole team for us to have this big event right at Riverside Church. He couldn't have been more right, and it was a real fitting testimony to a lot of work that a lot of people had done, because I couldn't have done it alone. When you try to do things alone, you would never get that kind of reaction.
And that really is a wonderful lead-in. You have this book that's out that you've written, Black, Blind, and in Charge, a story of visionary leadership and overcoming adversity. And your life is really amazing in terms of what you've accomplished. And I've watched lots of it. When you say you overcame adversity, you also came from a family that was distinguished, almost like royalty. How did that balance, and tell us a little bit about what growing up was like and becoming governor?
Well, when you come from a distinguished family, and my father's service was distinguished even among the distinguished, it's somewhat difficult for the next generation. So I was able to go through public school, even though the public school system in New York City would not educate me. That's why I was educated in Long Island. But when I got through it, everybody said, you're a chip off the old block. And when I graduated high school in 3 years, everybody said, you're a chip off the old block. And when I got into Columbia University, everybody said I was a chip off the old block. And then I had an unfortunate situation right before my junior year of college, which really destroyed my self-esteem at the time. I didn't know how to react to the fact that everybody I knew got summer jobs except me. And then in one case, when they wouldn't hire me and they knew my parents didn't like it, they hired my brother, who was underage. I went back to Columbia, and I basically dropped out, or flunked out, because I didn't go to any of the exams. And nobody was saying I was a chip off the old block then. So the adversity was that I had to reconcile that I had not stood up for myself in that encounter, as was explained.
So there became something that gave you this incredible self-esteem to say, I am somebody, I am immense, and took charge and became this immense figure and also one of the great speakers of our time, which people may or may not know.
And that would be, in my opinion, the turning point to why I'm sitting here talking to you now, or why I might be sitting at home reading books, collecting Social Security as a disabled person, as so many friends of mine from that era who were just as qualified as I was, unfortunately met that circumstance.
Well, it's an incredible story. You became governor, and it was a difficult time actually, and obviously not just how you took it over, but in terms of what was going on with the state and city. And one of the things that didn't surprise everybody, but is part of who you are, and that's what I want to mention, is you're straightforward. You call them as you see them, and that's really been a virtue, is your integrity and honesty over the years.
Well, I certainly tried to be honest with the citizens of New York, even though it placed me in the position of governing like people I usually detested, who never wanted to expand any programs for people, who always wanted to cut the budget when it came to services. I did the same thing they did, but I also taxed the wealthiest New Yorkers to make sure that they participated in the recovery. So I basically got attacked from both sides. And as I like to put it, I unified Albany. No other governor ever did. Everybody was pretty much hating me.
So one of the things that is mentioned about you is your empathy, and does that come out of what? And I saw an SNL line that you said, which is, they talk so much about my blindness they forgot that I was black, and I love the line. Did that background add to your empathy of people, that you learned, you saw things head on in terms of how people reacted to you, and therefore you had a way that you wanted to deal with everybody to right a wrong?
Yeah, I think that, I underwent a lot of, difficult treatment from other students when I was in the public school system, and, a lot of that. And I think also the fact that I was discriminated against as a blind person by Black people and was castigated by blind people for being Black. I recognize that every group, everyone in this world has prejudices. We don't acknowledge them and we don't really try to work through them, which is why the world has improved so much technologically, but not socially. And so that's, I think, where my empathy comes from for people who don't have a voice, or people who've had setbacks and don't know what to do. That's what I tried to instill in the workers in my state Senate office when I was there for 17 years.
One of the things that I'd like to just touch on, because it's part of history and people need learn that in terms of who we are. You were part of, in growing up with your dad and Percy Sutton, Dave Dinkins, and Charlie Rangel. They were the four most powerful, and certainly in Harlem and the city, probably, or beyond. What was that like, and what's the message from that we should take out today?
Well, the message is that the Gang of Four wasn't always the Gang of Four. When my father ran for the state Senate and I was carrying his literature, we also supported Franz Leichter. You know him. He was running for the assembly against some guy named David Dinkins. And we were taking David Dinkins' posters down. And
is that right? I didn't know that.
That's right. And David Dinkins won the election, but Franz Leichter was his opponent. And about 5 years later, my parents were talking, and my dad said, "Yeah, Dinkins is coming in 2 weeks." I said, "Coming into where?" He said, "He's joining our law firm." I'm like, "He's the enemy. We took his posters down." And that's when he explained to me, "Listen, you have elections, you have different types of situations that come up, but when they're over, you are human beings. He's a great lawyer. We'd love to have him in our firm. And you are going to come there and welcome him," which he made me do, which helped me out because Dinkins hired me down the road.
That's a great story. And one of the things that we're most pleased about, that you've joined the board of New Democratic Dimensions, and it's incredible. It's now the 40th year, but this is a new era for us. Is to be independent thinking, come up with new thoughts for how we better our society and really make it terrific, that it really represents in the best of ways everybody's possibilities. So
I mean,
what are your
Howard,
thoughts on what you'd like to see?
one of the worst examples of partisanship right now is that if you're in the Republican Party, you must believe that the election was stolen by Joe Biden, that people actually sat up with votes in their computer. And when Biden started losing in certain states, they kicked in some votes to make him win. If they were going to cheat on an election, they put all the votes up front so it looked like he was running away. So, what I'm saying is, we as Americans, sometimes in the Democratic Party and too much of the time in the Republican Party, are trapped by either individuals or ridiculous partisan strategies. So, as a Democrat, I was always very interested in charter schools because I thought that they could be the testing ground for a lot of educational ideas and theories. And then when they work, we could incorporate them into public education. Well, at the time, the Democratic philosophy is all charter schools are terrible. And so I got, criticized for working with the charter school leaders. And they're not all perfect, but all I'm trying to say is we cannot let our political parties serve as the barriers for the exchange of ideas. And I think that new democratic dimensions, having the sense of letting people be Democrats and still have free choice or present ideas and opinions, was a great thing that you and a few other people thought of right now, which we're going to hopefully take advantage of in the future.
So we have to end this short session, unfortunately and fortunately, and hopefully it's the first of many that we do there. And I'd like you to just give a plug for the book. It's important people buy it, read it, learn more about you. You're going to be around a long time, and you're a model for a lot of us.
Well, I wrote the book Black, Blind, and in Charge because that's what I was. And I try to talk a lot about that. But I think the most important point that I try to make is how important it is to provide opportunities for younger people, because there were a few people who saved me. And as I said before, if I hadn't met them, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. And in addition, it's a cry for a new sense of how we learn from each other, rather it be by race or religion or national orientation or sex or sexual orientation or age or disability. And so many times I've seen the worst of people. I tried to write some funny stories about the best of people in the book.
And where can people get it?
They can go to blackblindandInCharge.com. Please don't go to Amazon because my publisher has not sent me any of the royalties from the book yet, but that'll be in my next book called A Lawsuit.
Well, thank you. And we look forward to having your involvement. It's an important one to us and appreciate it.